Wisdom and connectivity with God is really knowing, okay, God, I've accumulated this wisdom. I've accumulated this knowledge, these principles. But how do I then in turn use it at the appropriate time to get the desired outcome to live and create the life of our dreams? And when we slow down and think, the same thing we did as kids is the same thing we should do as adults. Life looks more complex. We have the appearance of more responsibilities, but every morning, life is the same thing. You wake up, you put one foot down and then the next. You put one foot in the pants and then the next. Like it's really the same thing. We just get distracted because the look and the feel, it seems different, but that's the deception. The same principles we applied on level 1 are the same principles we apply when we're 20, when we're 30, when we're 40, so on and so forth. So 1999, I'm living in a city called Salem, Ohio. And I had a tremendous, during that summer, I had a tremendous experience consistently with God. And I was really tapping in. So I was living there, working for a company, didn't have any family there, no friends there. So I was spending a tremendous amount of time just locked in, dialed in with God, building up my relationship, my faith, better understanding self. Well, I'm a seer, so I have crazy dreams and visions. Generally speaking, when that happens, God explains these dreams and visions. I call them divine downloads. The funny thing about when I dream, I actually can run scenarios in my dream. So I can rewind and fast forward. And so the way I think, I'm very calculated, but I consider the cost. I consider the different scenarios, but I see visions that way. I see dreams that way. So if something happens in my dream, I can rewind it and go a different path, go a different direction, see different scenarios. So it's really cool. But the interesting thing when I dream, the dreams are more real than the room I'm sitting in right now. Even if I'm not asleep and I'm dreaming or having a vision, it's almost as if I transport to somewhere else. And what this image, it's fully sensory. So it's not just a thought. It's not just a sight. I can smell it. I can touch it. It's a very different experience. Well, 1999, had this dream. This was a pivotal dream that changed my whole outlook on life. In the dream, I was the only one in the dream. And I was led into this building. It was a dark building with an extremely long hallway. Very long. On each side of the hallway were doors. On the left and to the right. Doors all the way down the hallway. At the end of the hallway, there was a staircase. I could see the exit sign. The staircase was lit up, and it was going up. Okay, so it was to the next floor. Well, in the dream, I had to go, before I can walk down the hallway, I had to go in each door. So I started going inside the door on the left. The door was unlocked. When you go inside the room, you're faced with various interactions, and let's call it a test. And I have to learn various lessons to pass the test. So you get the learnings from the lesson, but you also get a key. With that key actually is the key that opens the door across the hall. So what I found in the dream, all of the doors are locked except the first door. The only way I can move down the hallway is I have to go through every room. And when I master the tests, I learn the lesson, but I get the key. So first room, go through this experience. And again, it's very interactive, but it's not It's not a game, it's life. So it's real life circumstances and it's fully sensory. So you're immersed in, let's say, a test, but a life test. Let's say it could be an example of a matter of life and death, so to speak. So it's, I mean, you know, it's fully, like, it's not just, oh man, I'm in school, this is a biology test. No, it's, you know, it's a vocation. Like, you have to interact with something. You have to deal with different stimulus, and how do you respond to that? And you keep doing it until you pass the test. So the dream was a series of dreams that was reoccurring every night for weeks. Okay. And I would keep having the same dream in the same room until I mastered that test and got the key. Did that first room, go into the second room. Same thing. Again, only one key opens one door. Again, this massive hallway with all of these keys, all of these doors. Well, fast forward, I now finished the last room, got the key from it. Now I'm at the end of the hallway. So now God told me, go up the stairs. So I go up the stairs, not knowing what I'm going to experience when I get up the stairs, but I'm here for it. Go up the stairs. When I get up the stairs, it's a mirror image of the first floor. The second floor looks exactly the same. Okay. So I know what to do. The first door is unlocked. I go inside the door. Now I do this. Again, this is a progressive dream. So this happened reoccurring. Level 1 wasn't too bad. Level 2 wasn't too bad. But as this keeps happening, every floor, the test started getting harder. What God said to me is, still quiet voice, the same lesson you applied on level 1, you apply on all the levels. The key is the distractions in the test, they're going to look different. Don't worry about how they look. You apply the same principles on level 1 that you apply on level 50. The challenge in life, though, is life happens and we get out of sort. We get distraught, disturbed, confused, anxious, all of these different emotions. But the same principles that was taught on the first level that allowed me to get to the end of the hallway is the same principles that you use in life. Well, these principles, these life lessons are keys. So again, I'm understanding it to the level of in 1999. So I got it to the level I understood it at that time. But then in real life happens and you forget the dream. So wrestling, struggling with different things, not recognizing it's the same approach, it's the same principles. So now I have all of these keys. Like Solomon, I'm granted access to different wisdom. But now it's a matter of, how do you know what key to use? So years removed, I have the dream again. Well, what happens in the dream? Now I'm on more advanced levels. The key is, and no pun intended, you don't have a lot of time to know which key opens the next door. So imagine there's a threat. Safety is in the door. Now I've accumulated, if you think about the old school janitors, you know, they had the big key rings with all the keys. Now I've accumulated all of these keys, but life doesn't tell you what key to use. So now I have to discern. And this is why I have to keep seeking God. God, give me the wisdom, the discernment to know which key to use to open this next door. Because when we think about opportunities are in a window. And if you're not prepared to step in the opportunity, they pass, the window moves on. Life is that same way. You have to know what principles, what keys do I use to unlock this door and to capitalize on the opportunity. Now, we're talking about opportunities, but also when we deal with tragedy and trauma, it's the same thing. I need to know what keys. And so even though I've accumulated keys, what keeps me grounded is, God, I still need you. I still need wisdom and discernment to know which key do I use in this moment so I can capitalize on the opportunity. And life is that way. Life is really about going through, learning the lessons, building the education through application. This isn't a book knowledge. This isn't memorizing a thing. This is actually applying it. Now we apply it, we know how to deal with that the next time we encounter these distractions, these life issues. Life's. When life's, what do we do then? The keys allow you to do that. But now when you've accumulated 10, 20, 50, 100 keys, it's not enough to have the keys. It's now, how do I know how to use the keys at the appropriate time? Wisdom and connectivity with God is really knowing, okay, God, I've accumulated this wisdom. I've accumulated this knowledge, these principles. But how do I then in turn use it at the appropriate time to get the desired outcome to live and create the life of our dreams? And when we slow down and think, the same thing we did as kids is the same thing we should do as adults. Life looks more complex. We have the appearance of more responsibilities. But every morning, life is the same thing. You wake up, you put one foot down and then the next. You put one foot in the pants and then the next. Like it's really the same thing. We just get distracted because the look and the feel, it seems different, but that's the deception. The same principles we applied on level 1 are the same principles we apply when we're 20, when we're 30, when we're 40, so on and so forth. And so what we often see is the distractions of today are sent to take us off center, to cause us not to remember the keys that we've already learned. If we can go back to that childlike memory, if we can go back to understanding, it's the same thing with a different costume. But if you think of things like Halloween, when we were in grade school, first grade, second grade, the costumes were cute. But as you start getting older as a teenager, the costumes look more frightening or scarier, right? Life is the same way. All of these distractions, they get dressed up different ways. But it's the same principles, the same keys, the same messages. And we don't get the opportunity to move beyond those lessons until we master them. Life has a funny way of repeating itself until we get the lesson that we were intended to learn. So the more in tune I was, and so fast forward, it's now 2024, I now look back at that dream and I realize the times in life where I struggled and I was in the matrix and things just continue to repeat. Well, it's because I lost sight of the same thing I did on level 1, I do on level 2. I do on level 20, I do on level 50. But it's slowing down enough to be conscious enough and aware enough of reapplying those principles and believing, even in the midst of not seeing the result, that the principles work. And lastly, what I found in my faith is when I first started being more submitted to God, seems like everything would happen very quick, right? And the more mature I got, it was like things were delayed. And sometimes I lose patience. And when I lose patience, what I would do, I would go off script. I would try to make things work on my own terms, cut corners or find alternative ways just to find a similar test repeat itself. And again, we're from Michigan, the Midwest, we grind. So it's nothing to it to just roll up your sleeves and, lean in that much more. And the subsequent dream, again, these are series of dreams, but the subsequent dream I had in Salem was, I'm like, God, why do you respond to me most when I'm desperate? I was praying this multiple times. Like I was in a rough place in my life, but I'm like, God, why is it that you respond in desperation? Finally, he spoke to me. He said, I don't respond to desperation. It's your faith applied when you're desperate, because you go all in, right? God only responds to faith, not desperation. So now I said, okay, so God, I'm going to desperately seek you with all of my being, with all of my focus. Now I've had setbacks, but my intent every day was, God, my answer to you is going to be yes before you ask the question. I'm going to go all in, full bore, 10 toes down, because I know the only thing that you respond to is faith. As we face crises, as we deal with trauma, as we deal with disappointments and setbacks in life, are we going to rely on ourselves, or are we going to go back to the principles, the keys, the lessons that God taught us from day one? And will we maintain the faith necessary to move to the next level? We determine how many rooms we open. We determine how many levels we ascend to based upon our ability to apply the same keys, the same principles. That's the dream.